Hello and welcome to the Justice Factor. The National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa and its allies are working for the benefit of capitalists, says the NUM's Frans Baleni. Is NUMSA working for capitalists, and will it finally walk out of COSATU? My guest today to answer this question is NUMSA Secretary General Ivan Jim. After that discussion, we'll give you our winner and loser of the week. But first, what can we expect from Finance Minister Gordhin when he presents his budget speech on Wednesday? My guest to discuss this now is Owen Nkomo of Inkunzi Investments. Owen, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you here finally.
Thank you, Mr. Malala.
Let me tell you, you can call me Justice, we're very informal here.
Sir.
But look at this, unemployment at 24%, targets. Since he came into power in 2009, his targets have always been cut. 3%, we end up at 2%. Or 3.5%, we end up at 2.5%. Credit downgrades, delivery protests. I mean, this government has been an economic failure. This budget is a failure before he even starts. Would you agree?
Geez, you know, if there was any justice in the world, I would much rather be Munib Joseph's during a Bafana game, goalkeeping, than having to answer that question. It's a fairly tough situation for Minister Gordhin going into this budget. There's quite a lot of negative things that are happening, or that are perceived to be negative in the country at the moment. Like you've mentioned, people are in the street striking. We're suffering from very limited growth in the economy, sub 3% growth. Yeah. And, you know...
No, when the number comes out, it will probably be 2%.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen downgrades come through, obviously. And the one thing to point out as well is that we're in a period where we're seeing the rest of the BRICS nations also start to struggle with their growth rates. Their balance of payments are not looking so great anymore. We've had like a decent past 10 years with China running aggressively, and we've kind of benefited from that in South Africa, you know, Russia, India, Brazil, etc. But now it looks like money is flowing back into the developed economies, and to an extent, one could say perhaps it's just a normalization again in this BRIC space. But then again, you know, if you look at the statistics, justice is a tough one. Is it a coincidence, or, you know, are these factors necessarily all about the government? Because if one could turn around and say the stock market, on the other hand, is at an all-time high during this current administration?
I'd turn around and say, look at the rest of it's not the only measure, but otherwise, you're absolutely right. The stock market is pumping and it's fantastic, but unemployment and all the other things. But what all these factors that you mentioned, what do they do to the minister? What kind of outcome, when he puts all that in his basket, what kind of budget will he give us on Wednesday?
I think it's going to be a very cautious and measured budget. He's got very limited ammunition. Firstly, the rand is trading at its lowest it's been in about 6 odd years. Yeah. Unemployment, you've mentioned it, still at 24, unpleasant. Even if we're seeing some cosmetic improvement on the number, that is not great. Growth below 3% is not great. So I anticipate that he's going to be very careful with how he plays this out.
The election is coming up.
Yes.
Is that going to say to him, go for it, say I'm going to spend, I'm going to do this on social grounds? Or will he keep steady and say, no, I don't have money to spend?
I think if, to be fair, he's probably sitting there thinking, if I'm to do my best here, there is no room for me to spend money aggressively. But unfortunately, like you've mentioned, when in an economy where allegations have been made that during elections people want to spend freely, etc., and I think that's one trap that we could have. And we will only know after the budget speech is issued, because my take, Justice, is that he does not have a lot of room to play with. Not enough tax is being collected, and yet there's so much of a demand for funding. You know, Eskom needs money, the national health insurance needs money, people are unemployed, they need to be looked after. So it's a very precarious balance right now.
You spoke about tax. Will he come for you and me, high net worth individuals, or will he go for VAT? What's he likely to do? Is there any indication whatsoever?
I think probably the only place where he could still do something, as he's always done in the past, is attack the sinners, the smokers, the drinkers, the gamblers. There, I do believe that he could do something. But how do you increase VAT when you're trying to get business to improve? When you try and get the small business person to employ more people, that doesn't give you enough room. So I think even from a tax perspective, if anything, we're likely to get a few more concessions. I'm hoping we get more concessions coming through to enable business to still operate and sustain the jobs that we've got. Otherwise, we're going to worsen the unemployment with people getting retrenched.
What about people like the mining companies? At its 2012 December conference, the ANC says we want a tax on super profits in mining. He appointed a commission with Judge Dennis Davis. Are we likely to get an indication of whether this will come after the election, or again, cautiousness, let's not rock the boat, let's keep it steady?
I think most of the people that have got investments in the mining space are looking out for that information. But I highly doubt that the current government will find it in its interest to go ahead and implement super tax profit, because these companies are actually not raking in that much of super taxes. If you look at the South African miners, in the past 3-4 years, they've been performing the worst. Okay? So it means only just now they're starting to show some positive numbers coming through. Do you then go out and say, just as they start to get back into productivity, you levy a monster tax on them? I don't think you want to do that.
Well, 2 more questions. Just one quickly. He announced in his medium-term budget that, let's all tighten our belts, let's not spend and so forth. Some government leaders like Thandi Modise in the Northwest went and bought herself a 1.3 million rand BMW. Is he going to say again, look at us in cabinet and others, we're tightening our belts? Will he go for that?
But that's the one problem. We were told that people have been given limits in terms of the amount they can spend on cars. People won't sleep in expensive hotels, but did that stop? Didn't. Some people still went on after the immediate term budget and slept in these fancy hotels and tell us this was planned before the immediate term budget. So I'm hoping that we're going to see more implementation and monitoring being introduced by the minister.
Owen Nkomo, one last question. Will this minister come back after May 7th if the ANC wins this election? There's been lots of rumors that Tito Mboweni is coming, is going to be the new finance minister. What's your betting on that?
Look, if you're Tito Mboweni, you've been a minister before in the government, you've done well, you saved the country as a governor of the Reserve Bank. Do you really want to get back into that role again? I think probably Mr. Mboweni has got maybe a corporate engagement to get back into, or something bigger in government rather than just a ministerial role.
Owen Nkomo of Inkunzi Investments, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to having you back here to see what you got right and what you didn't get right.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. After the break, we ask Ivan Jim if NUMSA will support Julius Malema's EFF in this election.
News that moves. eNCA.com.